Hello, everyone. You are listening to She Leads with Carly, and in this show, we talk to the absolute best, brightest, and yes, badass leaders. I'm your host, Carly Malatsky. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to welcome today's guest, Ashely Thompson. Ashely is the co-founder and CEO of Mush, a company that redefined ready-to-eat breakfast with its overnight oats. Made with simple, whole food ingredients, Mush is designed to provide clean, natural energy, and it's become a go-to for people looking for a nutritious and convenient option. Before starting Mush, Ashely spent 3 years as a trader on Wall Street at Goldman Sachs in New York. She earned her degree in math and economics from Columbia University before making the leap into entrepreneurship. In 2015, she left finance and moved to San Diego, where she started selling Mush at local farmers markets. Since then, she has grown Mush into a multi-million-dollar brand, pioneering the overnight oats category and landing major retail partnerships with Whole Foods, Target, Costco, Publix, and other top grocery chains across the country. Along the way, Ashely also pitched Mush on Shark Tank, securing a deal with Mark Cuban, which helped fuel the company's rapid growth. Ashely, I am so excited for this. I already know it's going to be a jam-packed conversation, but welcome to the show. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me, Carly.
Before we even get started, me reading that intro, I'm so impressed. Like, how does it make you feel just to hear all of your progress, where you started to now? Like, what emotions come through?
How does it make me feel? I think proud for sure, settled. It's been such a wonderful journey. So everything you just described brings a lot of joy to me and puts a smile on my face.
Yeah. Is it hard, by the way, to be proud? You know what I mean? Like, some people, it's hard to actually like recognize what you've done and be satisfied. I feel like there's almost a value in not being satisfied, but are you able to kind of separate the two?
Yeah, I think as I've gotten older, I've learned how to be grateful for the journey, everything that I've accomplished, who I've come to be as a human. And I think in order to do that, it takes a lot of reflection. I don't think we often spend a lot of time reflecting. And so it's really easy to be dissatisfied or just not even recognize what you've done or how far you've come. And so I've tried to really build that muscle, and that's really enabled me to feel settled in where I am today.
Yeah, it's so true, actually. Now that you mention it, I think it does come down to being able to reflect because oftentimes you don't even allow yourself to do that. And so maybe that can kind of, help in the feeling proud, feeling grateful. So I love that. I want to know, where did you grow up? And also, like, what type of kid were you? Were you very studious, I imagine, given, Columbia, all of that? But tell me a little bit about your childhood.
So I grew up in New Jersey, in northern New Jersey. My hometown's about 50 minutes west of Manhattan. So right in the tri-state, in the heart of the tri-state area. And most people would think that it's not too suburban or rural there, but it actually was. There are cornfields around my house. I grew up horseback riding. I'm one of 5 kids. Yeah, I've got 4 siblings. And I would say childhood was amazing. I never wanted for anything, which was amazing. I had 2 and still have 2, gratefully, very loving parents. I had a lot of energy. So I channeled that energy in so many ways. I loved arts and crafts. I loved sports. So did a lot of running, a lot of horseback riding, loved to be physical as a kid. I played a lot outside and did a lot of games with neighborhood kids, played a lot in the woods, would make paths, like rake through the leaves and make all these paths to go ride my bike on. And then I spent a lot of time learning. Even at an early age, I took school very seriously. I would say a lot of people would characterize me as a pretty serious kid. I remember my dad's business partner at the time, one day, we ran into each other. His daughter also horseback rode with us, and I must have had a serious look on my face doing something, probably like, channeling it toward the task at hand. And he stopped me and was like, you're as serious as a heart attack. And I'll never forget that, thinking like, oh my God, this guy just equated me to a heart attack. But yeah, I think I probably took life seriously and tried to make the most of every minute. Yeah, highly active, highly studious kind of kid.
From just research and whatnot, other podcasts, I've learned a couple things. One is, talk to me a little bit about the influence your dad had on you, particularly, especially given where you are now as an entrepreneur yourself. what did his own job and his own path kind of instill in you for where you are today?
So I would say I was heavily influenced by my mom and my dad, both of them. My mom was such a great caregiver, so loving, sacrificed so much for her kids to have what they need. And my dad, he was just such a bright example of entrepreneurship, like of a guy who came from nothing and made something for himself and for his family. So his journey was highly impactful to my own. He gave me a great mental mapping of what entrepreneurship is all about. And I've learned a lot from him, whether it's the way you treat people, like relational ethics, to cash is king in a business, like business fundamentals, or just ways of being and operating in the world and making sense of things. He's been super influential. He's still such a guiding light in my life. And I would say probably the thing I'm most grateful for as it relates to him and our relationship is just the way that he supported me as a human and in my development. He never praised me for things that were out of my control and always gave me praise for the choices I've made that led to things that were really beneficial in life for me and for others. So yeah, I love him. He's the best.
I love that. No, and that last part is so valuable because it also teaches, I think, a greater lesson. There are things that you can't control, and like you almost have to remind yourself to like focus on what you can control only. And so for him to celebrate that, I think is so important.
Yeah, he did. He always sort of guided my attention to what's in my control, what choices am I making, and how is that either benefiting or harming me in service of who I want to be and what I want to do. So he's a bright guy.
When you were a kid, did you find yourself, selling? Like, did you have your own little businesses? Like, any things that kind of remind you of, oh, you know what? Like, maybe it makes sense that I now started my own company today.
Gosh, did I have my own businesses? I wasn't really like fixated on making money as a kid. So I wasn't really into like selling things or anything of the sort. But I think what foreshadowed my journey today is I was always interested in making things. Like I was very arts and craftsy. I was making up games. I was making up stories. I was just always making things. And I think a huge part of entrepreneurship is around making or building. A lot of people in this world talk about building businesses, building companies, building products. And I think a word that I like to interchange there is make. Like you get to make things with people. And so, yeah, I would say was always making things as a kid, just not necessarily making it in service of getting money for what I was making.
Is there something that sticks out that you made?
Who knows what will come of this? I one time made a homemade thong. So my mom wouldn't
I
wouldn't
love it.
buy me thongs as a kid. I guess I'll go here. It's so true. And it's like one of the first things that comes to mind for me because nowadays, some people who I've shared this with at the company like tease me about it. So my mom wouldn't buy me thongs as like even, a young teenager. And I was like, well, I'm just going to make my own. So I took some underwear and cut the butt cheeks out and made my own.
So smart. So smart, honestly. What did your mom know about it, or was it like a secret endeavor?
I don't think she did, and I think I wore them once and then threw them out. I was just like, "This is so crazy, like, it's sort of deceptive, I don't really want that, she told me no, I don't know why I'm doing this." I think that, societal pressures, like, all my friends were getting thongs and their moms were so supportive of it, and I probably wanted to be just like them too.
Oh my God, that is so funny. I could also like I think to be honest, every girl has that moment where they're like, I want to wear a real bra and I want to wear makeup
Yes.
and I want, but like you're not there yet and your mom doesn't want you to be there yet and you don't understand it. So in a way, yeah, that tells me a lot. Like, you kind of took it upon yourself.
A little bold, a little mischievous, which, like, I always had a twinge of, but it would never cross a line into harm, so it's pretty illustrative of who I was as a kid.
I can also understand how that sticks out compared to the other ones,
Yeah,
understandably.
like, I've made a
That's
lot of
great.
stuff, but that one, it just is funny.
Okay, before we get into going to Columbia, studying math and econ, I actually want to talk a little bit about where even Mush, from what I understand and from what we talked about even before this, was a lot of it stems from health and wellness, and really like that is probably at the crux of it, if anything. Tell me a little bit about your own journey with whether it's mental health, physical health, with you and your family. I know you kind of have been touched by it in some degrees throughout your childhood, especially. What was it, and how did that impact you?
Gosh, I could go on and on for hours about this very topic. I would say mental and physical health have played a huge role in my own life, in my family's life. As a kid, I was surrounded by a lot of modernist thinking of like you diagnose people with certain mental disabilities or disorders, and then you like fix them either with medication or therapy. So that played a part. A lot of terms like anxiety and depression were thrown around in my orbit and ether. My own diagnosis as a young teen with OCD and like what that meant. And then physical, my own journey of evolving and growing as a woman into a woman, and what that meant at different stages, the pressures of being a certain size, looking a certain way. So all of that had a huge role in my childhood and upbringing. And I would say because of the tension it caused in my own life, in my own lived experience, I paid attention to it. I was really interested in it. Like I really grokked with it because I struggled so much with it, both, the physical and the mental. I realized at an early age that there's such a deep connection between, we try to like take them apart, physical and mental, but we're a whole being. And it's, our physiology is really important, and our how we feel affects how we think, and how we think affects how we feel. It's so interconnected. I then tied that to my actual lived experience of like, how do I feel in this world? How do I enjoy my life? And what is it about? And that's what really got me interested in it. I could tell that there were times where I felt really good in my body and had like really great mentality, and thus my life felt really amazing and settled. And then there were times where that wasn't the case. And so I could see that there were these connections that I was making between physical, mental well being and my overall lived experience. And that's what really got my attention on well being in general, and has really shaped what we're doing today.
Yeah, and obviously we'll get even deeper into it, but you said something, honestly, many things, but one was just so powerful where, like you said, we're in the society, and to be honest, I think we're still in it. Like this was in your childhood, but I actually think there's such a powerful element where it's still today where, you go to a doctor and they're diagnosing you very quickly and they're giving you medication very quickly. And in a way, it's a scary world because it's not like the medication is, even if it may quote, fix that thing, it could, mask something else. And I think this honestly may be a hot take, but I think we've gone so far away from a society where it's okay to feel all the whole realm of emotion, whether it's grief, whether it's sadness, whether it's whatever it may be. But I feel like now it's only okay to feel, happiness or content. And because of that, we have to, take medication to only feel those things. So I actually want to get your thoughts. Do you think we're still in that world, and how do you think we go away from it? Because it seems like you had your own personal journey that really kind of gave you this awakening, but what do you kind of tell others to also have it?
I certainly think it's so prevalent, where it's the waters we swim in still. I think it's a matter of educating people and opening up conversations that make sense of well-being otherwise. Like, we have these certain ways of making sense of well-being, and how to wrestle with physical or mental ailments and things of that nature. And I think it's about opening up different conversations, and hopefully democratizing them, getting them out there for many people to hear and listen to. So I think that's a huge part of it.
We'll probably revisit this when you talk more, obviously, about founding Mush, but take me through college a little bit. You go to Columbia, you decide to study math and econ, and walk me through almost like how were you imagining your career at this point? What were you optimizing for? Was it more of like financial independence, security, or was there a bit of like, I just want to follow my passions and build stuff right now?
I think coming out of college, I was still sort of gripped by societal norms and talk trains. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do. So like that was a key element. I just had no idea. And I was certainly optimizing for financial security. At the time, the way I had constructed things in my own head was I didn't want to rely on my parents anymore for resources. They had given so much to me. They'd sacrificed so much. I thought like, okay, I'm at the age where I can earn and I'm going to go earn and I wanted to do that so that I wasn't a burden to them, but also so that I could make my own choices independent of them. That was really important to me. So I was optimizing for financial security, and because I didn't know what I wanted to do, I just fell into finance in New York. The other thing that I was optimizing for was sort of like Colombia, like a new context, but similar to Colombia that was filled with people who are intelligent, who are working hard, they're competitive, they're learning a bunch every day. And that was really important to me. Like, how might I continue on this path of learning, but in a new context where I'm actually earning instead of just studying to learn? So that's sort of what shaped my ultimate decision to go into finance in New York. Obviously, the proximity of it too, it's the financial capital of the world. And I had studied things that are directly applicable to it. So it just sort of made sense in a lot of ways. But what I quickly realized once I got there was that I was just not passionate about it at all, like at all. It was so hard for me to to really to do well in it because I didn't have a deep interest in it. And I made that realization at the time that like I think I'm going to do so much better if I'm doing something I love to do every day. And so what is it that I might love to do every day? And that's what got me thinking about, pivoting to a different journey.
So, how did you even reconcile with that where you go to Goldman. Obviously, it's a very intense. I feel like you actually thrive in intense environments. Is that right?
So I feel like I did for so long, and now I'm like, I think I wanna thrive in a different environment. Yeah. But yeah, I would say I thrived for a very long time in pretty intense environments. I often sought them out thinking that that was, a way to forge, like, character and identity in certain ways.
Oh, that's fascinating. I like that. So once you go to Goldman, you realize I'm not passionate about this. How soon did you realize that?
Pretty quickly. Like, I would say the first 6 months were, like, a little disorienting. I mean, it was the shock of my life going from school to full-time job in that environment where I was in my seat at 6 a.m. and working until 5, 6 p.m. straight I had bathroom breaks and could go get food, but I had to eat at my desk or often ate at my desk pretty much for breakfast and lunch. It was a shock to me physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It was just super draining and disorienting. Once I sort of settled into this new norm, I quickly recognized it was not something I wanted to do. Both like the work itself was not I wasn't passionate about, and then the way we worked, I didn't feel like it was supportive of my overall well-being. I mean, to sit for 12 hours a day straight, staring at screens in air conditioning with people yelling and high pressure, super intense. I just didn't feel like it was supportive of like who I wanted to become. And so I quickly realized that, but what I didn't quickly realize was what did I wanna do? And it took me a while to figure that out. And I was pretty patient with it. Like, I wasn't rushing to leave. I didn't wanna run away from Goldman. I wanted to run toward something. And I just didn't know what that something was, but I knew pretty immediately that I wasn't gonna stay for a long time. It didn't take me very long to recognize that.
Got it. And by the way, at this time, you were also training for half marathons, right? You were running a lot.
I was running like 70 miles a week.
And was that coming from a place of, like, maintaining mental wellness and health, or was it more of just okay, so it was almost like this was your safe space and Goldman was, like, where things were just hard?
I mean, the running too was a little, I don't know. It was hard as well on the body. Like, again, seeking out intensity. I think I have always, and I think it goes back to what I said before about my childhood. Like, I've just always had a lot of energy to get out. And so I needed these different outlets for my energy. And Goldman was certainly one of them, but it was very, yeah, it was pretty depleting. And running actually, while most think it might be depleting of energy, it was very energy giving for me. It was very meditative. I would go on a 10-mile run and just feel so high afterward. And it was a time of solitude, a time of reflection, a time of feeling really good physically in my body. And so that was a big part of my life in getting through that period where I wasn't satisfied with what I was doing professionally. So I filled my life with other things that, kept me sort of afloat.
I also think that's super important, even just to emphasize, right? Is because if anything, that's often like the first thing to go. But like you said, it was actually very energy giving. And if anything, it gave you that, that energy to go and go to work and still think about like, okay, what is next? Like, I think that's so important, even for, mental wellness. Like it's not, we're not just saying it as like a, just to nice to have, but it's like super important to do.
Yeah, like physical activity in the moment depletes energy, but overall gives you a lot. Like, I mean, it helps with your metabolic function and that helps you feel, energized, et cetera. So, a lot of amazing benefits. And I think often we think, oh, when I exercise, I don't have enough energy for other things, but actually it can be very energy giving.
And so you mentioned you had this, you knew you wanted to, go do something else, but you didn't know what. Can you walk me through that exploration process? What did that look like for you? Was it on after work, on the side, building things? How did that look?
It was anytime I wasn't at Goldman. So, which wasn't a ton of time, I will say. And I think that's partially why it took me so long was because I just didn't have a lot of space to explore other things. And I did only have finite energy to give to other things. And exploring takes time and energy. So it took me a while, but like I did so many things. I started a fashion blog. I was like an original, like way back in the day when Instagram was like just starting to come out and these fashion bloggers were becoming now what they are today, influencers. So I had a blog with an Instagram account at one point. I had written a screenplay called Whatever's Lovely. I still have it. I haven't read it in probably a decade. I should break it out, but on the weekends I was writing a screenplay and then just thinking about like so many different business ideas. I had a journal of different things that I was contemplating doing, getting into fashion. I really like sort of what I did realize at that time was there were three things that I loved: fashion, fitness, and food, like nutrition. So I was really exploring things within those industries, call it. Um, and all of them interest me in so many ways, but I ultimately landed on food for a number of reasons. And yeah, it's been a journey.
And in your mind back then, did you almost conceptualize it as I will, build a MVP, if you will, or something very small, see if it has traction and then quit? Or was it almost like how were you thinking about ultimately leaving Goldman?
I got this idea. Like I had so many different ideas, but they would sort of come and go. Like I would have this idea, I'd be really hot on it for a little while and then it would just fade. And then I got this idea, which is what Mush is today. I mean, not exactly what Mush is today, but this idea of making and selling overnight oats and scaling that. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I like couldn't stop seeing signs and signals and having conversations that were just so supportive of doing that, like going and doing that. And so I thought about it for a while, but I didn't make really like a business plan or anything prior to. I had made a couple prototypes of overnight oats. I had been making overnight oats for a long time and bringing it into work. So I was no stranger to the product, but I thought about it for a little while. I remember thinking like more seriously about quitting my job in like November or December of 2014. And then I thought to myself, if this idea is still hanging around by the time I get my third year bonus in February, March, I'm going to quit and I'm going to do it. And that's exactly what I did. I could not get it out of my head. I just saw the world told me to go do it and I did. So after I got my third year bonus, I quit. I quit in like I want to say early April, and I moved out to Southern California by May, and I founded the LLC May 28th. So it was like pretty quick process from like decision to startup.
Wow. Okay. I have so many questions I could go from here, but Tell me a little bit about one. So you were already eating overnight oats, and this was something that wasn't at all able to buy, right? It wasn't in grocery stores?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even like it was very unfamiliar way of eating oats. Like everyone on the desk would be like, You're eating cold oatmeal? Like, what is that?" Like chia pudding wasn't a thing, overnight oats weren't a thing. Like Pinterest, overnight oats became a thing years after on Pinterest. And like now people know what overnight oats are. But if you ask someone 5 years ago, I bet less than 5% of the US population would have known what overnight oats are.
How did you even discover it? Like, what made you make overnight oats from the start?
As a kid, I ate a ton of cereal growing up. So I love I just love breakfast. I love cereal. I loved soaking my cereal overnight. I did that as a kid because I loved soggy cereal, which is weird. Well, I loved both soggy cereal, but also I loved having my breakfast made the night before. So I had this behavior already in my past.
I don't think I've ever heard of that, by the way. I've never heard of someone putting cereal in milk the night before.
Yeah, I mean, and I did it every day in high school. I would mix up the different cereals. Sometimes it would be shredded wheat, Cheerios, whatever. I mean, anything and everything. I'd mix it all up, soak it overnight, and I loved eating it soggy the next day. So I had that in my past. And then as I got older, and like many people now, cereal's declining quite a bit because yes, it's convenient. Yes, it's really tasty. And yes, it's full of sugar. It's not super healthy. It's really highly processed. Things are fortified, but like in general, it's just like, cardboard in a box. Uh, I switched from eating cereal to oatmeal and I was making hot oatmeal a lot. And then I thought like, oh, I could just soak my oats. Like I used to soak my cereal and I started experimenting with oats and that's what overnight oats are. That's how I got to the product. And then I loved the product. I mean, so satiating, super healthy. Oats are such a great vehicle for flavor, like, you can experiment so much with flavor, you can make them different every single day, but you could also stay with your favorites and eat the same thing every day. It's sort of a very comforting, nourishing, satiating food that I always wanted to eat pre or post run. It's great fuel for runs, and yeah, I was obsessed with the product, I still am today, I eat it every day.
That is amazing. Same, honestly. I love it. And at the time, were you giving it to friends to see, like, okay, is this just a me, like a weird thing that I like? Were friends giving you really good affirmation about it?
Actually, like, not exactly. Like, so I was giving it to people and, like, my dad, he, like, wrote me I gave him a bunch of samples when I think I may have I don't know if I had quit already, but he essentially, like, gave me an assessment and gave the product, like, a B minus, which for, like, a straight A student, I was floored and devastated. I was like, "Oh my god, we're gonna have to fix this." And then in the early days, once I had quit and moved to Southern California and we started making and selling it, the first prototype had yogurt in it. And people were like, ew, this is so gross. Like sour yogurt with these oats. We just got such bad feedback. But I knew, like, given my own experience with how I was making them and how much I enjoyed them, like, I thought, like, I cannot be the only person in the country to enjoy this product. So just kept going and knew that it would take a lot of iteration to get to a really great product that had mass appeal, and that's exactly what we did, but it does take a lot of time to do that.
Of course. Okay, before we move to San Diego, I want to ask you, so I think what you went through, I know a lot, even personally, right? I know people who are either like going through that. So I'm going to give you a very personal anecdote of a really good friend of mine. She's been a trader at a top bank in New York, for the last 5 years. And I would say, similar to you, where she knows she doesn't like it and she's like very much in that exploration phase, whether it's, coming up with different ideas. I think your advice, by the way, of like what sticks is so powerful. Like if you can't sleep at night because you're just thinking about it all the time and giving yourself that like timeline of, if by my third year, my bonus, it's still there, then I'll quit. I want to know, how important is it that you did quit? Because I think so many people are like, I can do it on the side. and I could try it out and see if there's traction and then I'll quit. But like, again, with these types of banks and honestly, many jobs, they keep incentivizing you to stay, and it's actually quite hard. So, what would you say to either my friend or just in general?
I would say quitting was the first and most critical step to making Mush into what it is today. And had I not quit, I don't think I either would have really delayed the journey of Mush or it wouldn't have worked. I think there might have been like failure to launch. And it's really hard to say, right? I mean, I can't go back in time and play that journey out, but I would say quitting, it enables commitment, which these journeys take a lot of commitment. It makes space for the energy that you need to do this. It's hard enough to be a trader on Wall Street, and never mind then trying to throw on top of that building a company. I think I'd find it nearly impossible. So quitting was the first and most critical step to starting Mush and building it into what it is today. I think a lot of people, when people want to continue to work, but then also have this side hustle, to me, I have a lot of questions like, what's holding you back from quitting? What are you afraid of? How might you think about this otherwise so that you can really invest your time and energy, which is really finite, into building the future you want to have, which usually for people, it is not, corporate America or sitting there and trading all day. It's something else. So I don't know if I have advice, but I would love to talk with anyone and ask them a lot of questions about what's holding them back so that hopefully we can get to a place where they have a more clarity as to how they want to move forward.
Absolutely. And you mentioned fear and doubt, which I think are probably one of the two most paralyzing emotions or feelings to have. How how do you deal with that? Or did you have that in the early days, and how did you deal with it?
It's funny. I feel like I was fearless in the early days. Like, I just was so naive and had no doubt whatsoever.
That's amazing.
And I think that's part of the beauty. There are a lot of benefits and consequences to starting a business so early, like, at such an early age. I was 24 years old, and like, you only know so much at 24. You only have so much life experience. So I was really naive heading into the journey, and I think it's a blessing. I don't regret that whatsoever. I'm grateful for when I started it and who I was at the time. So I feel like I was really fearless and had not a lot of doubts. I think actually over time, as the stakes get bigger and things get more complex and life gets going, fears creep in and sometimes doubt. Things get really hard in the entrepreneurial journey, and of course doubt creeps in. And to your point, it can be really paralyzing. I think it can really knock your confidence, which is so important to performing well and having a good experience of what it is you're doing. So, yeah, I mean, they're super crippling. And I would say I've coped with fear and doubt in different ways along the journey, but it's certainly been a part of it, like it is for so many people. And it's a matter of like, what do you do with that fear and doubt? Do you face it? Do you confront it? Do you reflect on it? Like, what do you do with it? Because it's inevitably going to come. And so it's a matter of how do you respond to it and make sense of it to move forward in a way that you prefer.
What works for you? What does that look like in your world?
Nowadays, what works for me is anytime I have like a really big fear or doubt about something, I talk with one of my mentors and we break it down, like we deconstruct it. So I've constructed this fear in my head, right? Or this doubt in my head. And if I can construct it, then I can also deconstruct it. But it takes conversation with people who are supportive of you and what you're doing to untangle things, wrestle with things, and deconstruct these meanings in your head. And so that's what I try to do. I try to, if I always think, well, I've constructed this myself, so hopefully I can deconstruct it too.
That's brilliant. No, really, I think that's so brilliant because what it really tags on is the bigger concept is that it's a mental model that we've built, right? Like it's a construct that we've built in our mind. So like, why not do the exact same thing to deconstruct it?
Yeah, like if you can build it, you can also tear it down too. There are different ways of doing it. And not everything needs to be deconstructed, but I think fear and doubt, yeah, certainly. Let's unpack it and really make sense of it so that hopefully you can move through it or get through it in ways that you really do prefer.
I love that. I'm gonna use it for me too. Okay, so you end up moving to San Diego. By the way, because I'm guessing you were entirely East Coast for most of your life. Is that true up until that point?
Yeah, New Jersey, New York.
So why San Diego?
A lot of reasons. I grew up going to California in the summertime with my family, so I had super fond memories of the state. Like, every family vacation, every summer, we would go on a 2-week family vacation, and it was always somewhere in California. I think my parents wanted to get out and see new things, all the novelty that comes with the West Coast versus East. So, I had a lot of fun memories. I always wanted to move somewhere and experience something new in a new location. I really was chasing weather. Like, I had realized and reflected that as much as I love the winter, it affects my physiology and my well-being. Like, you can't be outside as much. It's pretty harsh to be in the elements, for a long period of time, so I was chasing good weather. I was chasing my boyfriend, now husband, or my boyfriend at the time, now husband. He was a Navy SEAL stationed in San Diego, and then I thought about how on the West Coast, especially particularly in California, consumers or people and that culture, they're really open to health products, and like a lot of trends start there. That's where kombucha was born. They're just like so much more open to trying new things from a food and nutrition perspective. So I thought that might work in our favor, given that I knew cold oatmeal was going to be a tough sell to a lot of people. And then finally, when I was zeroing in on California and where we should go, and I obviously wanted to be close to my boyfriend, but San Diego actually happens to be like one of the most saturated areas for farmers markets, which was like, I don't know why I thought this would be a good product for the farmers markets, but I was like fixated on doing farmers markets to start this business. I wasn't entirely sure how to go from zero to retail overnight. And so the middle ground, or the lily pad that I hopped to, was making and selling this product in farmers markets and actually getting to talk with consumers about the product and getting so much rich information and feedback as a result of that. And it shaped a lot, from product design to the way I think about consumers, what I learned about selling food to people. It was just so formative in a lot of ways for my journey.
I want to know from a first time CPG founder, right? And there's so much new going on. Would you say, like, in my mind, the farmers market is also brilliant because, like what you said, you're just iterating based off of what you're seeing in real time. How important was that? And like to this day, thinking of the whole journey of Mush, how important was those early days of just getting out there and putting the product in front of people's hands, seeing their reactions?
It's incredibly important. I would say, like, one of the biggest mistakes that CPG founders make is they start to scale a product that has not a lot of appeal. And, like, maybe they're onto something, but they still need to iterate and make changes to it to ensure that, like, it's gonna have real, like, scale and product market fit. But they don't do that because they don't get it in front of enough consumers, and they just sort of, like, whatever they like, they put out into the world hoping that it'll stick. But really, like, it's not about what a founder likes. So that's a huge part of it, but it's also depending on your goals. Maybe you don't want to be a big company, but for us, we wanted to scale and reach as many Americans as possible. It's really about, like, what do the people think? My opinion's just one, but there are 120 million households that we hope like this product, and what do they think about it? So it was really, really important. I think the rejection I faced was so important. I learned very quickly that rejection isn't a verdict, it's just data. So use it. You're going to get rejected in entrepreneurship, and it truly makes types like me, who grew up acing everything and good student and good this and good that, it makes failure and rejection really hard to cope with. I think the farmers markets were a good training ground for that, because you could see it even on people's faces right in front of you. It wasn't even over the phone, it was in real time. You're getting negative data points. And so how do you cope with that? What do you do with it? And that was great for it.
That's brilliant. Rejection isn't a verdict, it's a data point. During that time, was it you making the overnight oats, you making mush, and just like, every night going back, making some more for the next day, for the next farmer's market?
That's it. Yeah. It was making and selling, like, pretty much 7 days a week, which eventually I came to my senses and was like, if I keep doing this, I'm never going to have any time to actually scale this business. I'm just making product and selling it in farmers markets. And we've got vision beyond that. But for, I would say the first year, we really just made product and sold it, tried to get our bearings. Again, that first year of entrepreneurship, I think is also pretty disorienting. So it took me a little while to orient myself, adapt to a new environment, adapt to the total lack of structure that is entrepreneurship. Like there were some days where I was like, it's 10 a.m. and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Should I read a book? Like, what do I even do right now? Like, there's no structure. There's no one handing you homework assignments or delegating work to you. So for the first year while I got situated in this new journey, yeah, spent many an hour making product and selling it pretty much all day, every day.
I'm so happy you said that because, by the way, I'm in that now. Like, that resonates with me a lot. Where, and similarly, like, you came from this childhood to college to Goldman where things were structured. Like, you had the epitome of structure. You knew what you were doing every day to coming into this uncertainty. Would you say, was that one of the most challenging parts?
That was so challenging, like how to spend my time wisely and like do things or think about things that would actually make a difference to make progress in the journey. Like you're essentially creating meaning out of everything and trying to navigate and put structure to and create your own discipline and routine and what have you. That was a big challenge in the early days for sure. Like there were so many times where I caught myself thinking about like, what should I be doing? What should I even be doing right now? Like, I don't know what I should be doing. And so figuring that out and sort of trying to, get a prioritization going, a list, a priorities list going. But it's certainly not easy, especially at that age. Like what you're really asked to do at that age, which is really hard, is lead yourself. Like you don't have a leader leading you. You don't have a teacher, you don't have a guide. And so you're leading yourself, you're creating vision for yourself and then building into that vision. And that can be hard when you haven't done it before.
Totally. So, like you said, you always thought Mush was going to be. By the way, how did the name come about?
The name, I love the name. What everyone agrees on with the name is that it's highly memorable. What some people don't agree with is like, is it even appetizing? But I love the fact that it's super memorable and I don't take it so seriously. I think it's like a very punchy, cool, fun, modern name. So Mush, so back to I was soaking my cereal overnight and every day I would come down the stairs. My dad would be up doing something, reading, having breakfast, and he would say, "What's in your mush this morning?" So he called it that. And I was like, oh, ode to my dad. I mean, he's my hero. And then also, I took Latin in college. There's a lot of, like, I loved how with Latin, like, one word could have like a long list of meaning in English. And so I wanted to make a double meaning out of the word. And so mush actually stands for mankind's ultimate source of health. And that really explains the belief under that is like food is the ultimate source of health. Like food and activity are what power real health. They're the underpinnings to physical well-being and mental well-being. So yeah, it has double meaning for me.
That's brilliant. That's such a great story. Both of them, both elements of it. I love it. So you always had this concept that it was going to be bigger than, farmers markets. Like you wanted to go beyond. Walk me through that process of getting, I believe Whole Foods was the first retailer to take it on.
Yeah.
What did that process look like? And then I think the next challenge beyond getting it on the shelf, then the next challenge becomes how do you get it off the shelf, right? And get into more locations. How did you do that?
I can tell you it wasn't a straightforward path, both getting on and then getting on shelf and getting off shelf. So getting on shelf. So it was just a series of networking opportunities. I met a guy who knew a guy who knew someone at Whole Foods and just tried to network my way into getting a meeting with the local forager of Whole Foods. They used to call the local buyers, the buyers in regions who were sourcing things locally, they used to call them foragers. And the local forager in Southern California at the time when we were just starting out was a wonderful woman named Monica Coyle. She's still in the space, and I credit her for helping us get our big break. So I had met a guy who I was actually demoing our product at a coffee shop, and he was demoing a different product at the same coffee shop one day. And we struck up a conversation, and he tipped me off to LinkedIn message Monica's boss. And so I did. And then Monica's boss never replied to me. But then one day Monica reached out and she said, "Hey, like I've heard about you, would love to take a meeting." And so drove up to LA, met with her, told her about our vision and our dreams to one day be, a supplier to Whole Foods. And right then and there, she said, "Let's kick off the process. Like, why don't we get you into 10 stores in Southern California? Let's do a really small test and we'll go from there. We'll see what happens." And that was the opportunity. So at the time, we weren't retail ready. And so I think she had approved us in like October or November of 2016. And so from then to March of 2017, we had to get a retail ready product with like packaging and shelf life, all of that. So it was a mad dash and a sprint to get ready for this launch, but we somehow did it. And so then we launched in 10 stores in Southern California. And so my days went from making and selling the product at farmers markets to making and demoing the product at Whole Food stores. So
Okay,
that's
yeah.
how we got it off shelf. We demoed it ourselves every single day, as many stores as we could, to try to get people to just try the product, give us feedback, and get our numbers up so that we could distribute, so that we could launch into more stores and then regions. But we really powered the performance ourselves by demoing the product.
And so the focus, it seems like it was almost like a near-term focus of, can we just sell it by being in person in these 10 stores and then from there get into more stores rather than thinking like more scalable like America?
Yeah, yeah. Like I just like at that time, like, didn't have enough experience or vision to go from, like, a farmer's market to, like, a nationwide launch. So, I was like, "10 stores sounds great because what I know how to do is make this stuff and get people to try it and buy it, and, like, that's what I know how to do, and I know that that's not where I wanna stop, but that's all I've learned so far, and I wanna learn from there, but I don't wanna get too ahead of myself and launch in a way that I don't know how to support." Like, of course, I wanted a national launch, but I knew that it wouldn't be successful because I didn't have the resources, including the money, the knowledge, the team to make that a successful launch, and I obviously didn't wanna blow it. So, we started small and just kept learning, and that's what I told myself, like, "Just keep putting one foot in front of the other, like, stick to it, and eventually, over time, after years, like, this is gonna be something big."
And you mentioned money, right? I said in the intro you went to Shark Tank. I learned that they actually approached you. They came to you and said this could be a really cool product to demo or, go to the sharks and pitch it to. Can you actually talk me through, when I heard this, I was shocked because it didn't make sense, but I learned that you were incredibly nervous. And if anything, your like leg was shaking and it was a very like nerve-wracking process. And just from online presence, talking to you, like it doesn't come across. So tell me about that process for you and how did you navigate it?
I feel like looking back, my experience of it is, like, I barely survived it because I was
That's crazy.
such a nervous wreck heading into that. I've only, like, more recently gotten a little more comfortable making conversation and, like, being more, like, out in the public, I guess you could say. I was never like that as a kid or as a young adult. I was super introverted, kept to myself a lot, and so the idea of putting myself on display on national TV in front of famous people with cameras beaming down on me, it was more than horrifying. Like, I sought out intense experiences, but this was, like, my version of hell. Like, it was Dante's Inferno on display, and I feel like I barely survived, but I somehow got through it. I think what I told myself was just be true to who you are. Like, just be like your honest self is well intentioned, is kind, it's caring, and just be yourself and you're gonna get through it. And it could get messy, but like have a little trust that you're not gonna do anything that's gonna like really blow this up in a bad way. And I think I sort of relied on that line of thinking, but I could not, no matter what I did, who I spoke to, how many runs I went on, I could not quiet the nerves. And I was incredibly nervous. It was like an out of body physiological experience that I've actually never experienced it again. The amount of nerves heading into that was really wild. And yeah, I'm grateful I got through it.
But that's the thing, right? Is that you not only got through it, but you came out with, probably the best case where Mark Cuban invested. It ultimately like really helped Mush grow. Did that as a whole, like now that you're past that point, does that now give you confidence? Because I think this resonates with a lot of people where it's like this insane terror and nerve wracking, moment, but ultimately like everything can work out okay.
It definitely was a confidence building experience for sure. But what I would also say, and I'm gonna like split a hair here, is that experience was almost like too outside of my comfort zone for me to build a ton of confidence in. And afterward, I would say like the situations where I've built a lot more confidence in myself are ones where they're like just outside of my comfort zone. And then I do incredibly well. But something that's like so largely outside of your comfort zone, it feels like an out of body experience. And like, you're not even sure, for me at least, again, it's like disorienting. Like you don't know how to make sense of it. Whereas something that's just slightly outside of my comfort zone that I crush helps me build a little more confidence. And like that's what really propels me forward as a human. And so like truly things like this, podcasts or even conversations with people who I would consider like highly influential or like famous or whatever, like someone who I might be uncomfortable in front of because I want to make sure I make a good impression or something of the sort. That's when I build a lot more confidence versus this extreme experience that to me felt like Hollywood.
It's almost like too big of a leap.
Too big of a leap to like really like be in touch with it. I have to think about it more, but yeah, that's sort of how I feel about the Shark Tank experience.
One thing I would love to know is a lot of people think CPG is very sexy. It's like a very sexy thing to do, starting a CPG company is like the one way I could put it. I want to actually know from you, like, what are the misconceptions or things that people don't realize or advice you would even give to someone who's thinking of doing a CPG company, but like almost you wish you knew before?
It's one of the least sexiest things that you could is make and sell food or food and beverage. There's so much hard work involved, so much physical work involved, quite frankly. I mean, we're making physical goods and selling them. So much of what makes CPG what it is behind the scenes is really unsexy work and really necessary. I mean, we have a, food system that feeds a ton of people and I'm so grateful for all that goes on and into it. So shout out to everyone who makes it work the way it does today. I would say that is a common misconception. Like people think they have this cool sexy brand and they put a product, have a cool product and it's just going to work. And that's just not the case. There's so much that goes into building great brands and building great brands that have everlasting effects on people and have, longevity to them. So, yeah, I would say that's a common misconception. A lot of people think like, oh, there's such low barrier to entry. And they really, anyone who says that doesn't really have an idea of what it truly takes to win in CPG. So yes, anyone can think of a food product that they want to make. Anyone can create a brand. Anyone can get a product to market. But to actually scale one and to win in CPG is super sophisticated. It's very complex. It's not straightforward. And a lot of times there's all these stories that come out about like these overnight successes when in reality, these brands have been around for 10, 15, even 20 years. And that's a huge misconception that like you can build brands quickly. I think you can build them quicker than ever before, but they still take a lot of time. Like The food industry is actually quite slow. Consumers are actually slower to adopt new things than you would think as it relates to food and beverage. It's different in different industries like tech, but things that are as intimate as like something you ingest every day. And a lot of people eat based on what's familiar to them and what they grew up on. And so changing those habits, I think all of that sort of gets missed when people think of emerging CPG in this day and age because of all that they see on like Instagram, TikTok.
It's so interesting you mentioned that, by the way, because even like you said, in the 2014, 2015, when you were creating this, in a way, the positive is that it was a white space, like this wasn't on the shelf. So in many worlds, you would say like, oh my God, this is an amazing opportunity. But similar to what you just said, that doesn't necessarily equate to this is going to be a scalable, huge business.
Totally. I mean, I think that's really insightful of you to point out. Like, Mush was almost too innovative for its time. And like the wave is just kind of coming to us now, but it took, years and years and years to get here. The big sort of quick success stories are ones in which the timing of launching the brand was really right when it comes to consumer demand for the category and like for innovation in the category. But with Mush, we're not only really innovative. I mean, it's crazy to think. I just thought like, well, it's just oatmeal, but it's not. And super innovative. And then on top of that, we're creating a whole new category within a competitive category in yogurt. And that makes for a really challenging build for sure. It's certainly not been overnight.
Was it more scary or exciting when you started to see other brands, even Trader Joe's, come out with overnight oats?
I would say both. Like, as a young entrepreneur, no matter what people tell you, like, don't focus on the competition and focus on the consumer. It's like, if you're competitive, you're going to get so upset when a new brand comes out and like starts telling people that their product's better than yours. Like, of course you're going to get upset. And so, yeah, like I would be like furious and steaming. As I've gotten a little bit more experienced in my journey and have like constructed a new way of thinking about competition. I would say, on the whole, brands that have come out with overnight oat products have been really beneficial to us because they're helping to build awareness of the category. Like, we don't have enough marketing dollars to educate 120 million households on what overnight oats are. But when there's a collection of brands that raise a bunch of resources to market this category and this product is something that's healthy and amazing and quick and convenient and great for breakfast, that actually does help us. Like, it's like a rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing. The larger the category and the more momentum it has, the better off all the brands will do. So I'm like, hey, have at it. If you want to go spend $15 million marketing this category and then we can be a great option or a better option, hopefully, I would love that. It's a dream. But yeah, when I first started to see like little competitive brands come out, it would eat away at me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, I that makes sense. I want to know, where is Mush today and what are you most excited about?
We are distributed nationwide in a bunch of doors. We've got now multiple product lines. So we went from just having overnight oats to within the last year, we've launched protein bars that have oats in them, as well as oatmeal smoothies in pouches for kids. And then we have that's just rolling out now our signature line of overnight oats, but we've now bulked and beefed them up with added protein. So we've got all these new products coming to market, which is really exciting. And we're distributed nationwide. We have an incredible team that is just, I think, really excited about the opportunity in front of us to get our brand out there and get more people, more consumers into the franchise, which is really exciting. And I think what's on the horizon is truly just continuing to pound the pavement and build the brand one consumer at a time. Like that's really how you do it. So, with these new products, we have a higher probability of consumers discovering us in store because consumers can discover the brand in different categories. We're in the bar category with our new bars, we're in the pouch category with our new pouches, and then we obviously have the cups. And we're just really excited to get more people to know that there are healthy options available to them in their local stores. And hopefully, Mush can be one of those options, part of their daily routine. So I think it's like more of the same, truly, just more products, great products that people love. That's what it's all about.
I love it. I love how you say all this casually. Like the fact that you have the bars and you have the pouches, like that is so freaking cool. I want to know, what craft are you spending a lifetime honing?
This is a new one for me. And hopefully I've done it justice today, but I'm certainly will forever be a student in honing this craft. I think making conversation. That is something that I wanna continue to learn how to do. I think conversation is one of the most powerful and impactful activities that we engage in as humans every single day. It's what shapes who we are, what we do. It literally creates worlds around us, and I wanna get a lot better at making conversation with really cool people. So
That's awesome. Well, I can attest that I think you're doing really well so far with that craft. This has been so fun. Thank you so much for coming on the show, just sharing your incredible journey and just lessons, messiness, everything along the way. I'm so excited. I appreciate it.
thanks, Carly. I appreciate you having me.